A woman locked in a concrete box, sentenced to die, isolated from all human contact, somehow carrying life inside her body. The cameras never lied. The logs were perfect. The security was absolute. Yet the impossible had happened. Cell Block F housed the facility's most dangerous inmates, those condemned to die. Among them was Dr. Amora Johnson, prisoner C-4471, a former chemistry professor who had been sentenced to death in 2010 for manufacturing and distributing synthetic drugs that killed 17 people. She had spent the last 18 months in complete isolation, no visitors, no communication beyond the bare necessities of survival. At 2:17 a.m., Washington's attention was drawn to cell F12 by an unusual sound, a soft whimpering that seemed almost infantile. Through the reinforced glass, she saw Amora doubled over, clutching her abdomen. What Washington witnessed next would shatter every protocol she had ever learned. Amora collapsed, her prison uniform stretched tight across what was unmistakably a pregnant belly. Medical emergency, cell F12. Inmate down. Washington's voice cracked as she slammed the alarm button. The first question everyone asked wasn't, "Is she okay?" It was, "How is this possible?" Within minutes, the medical team arrived. Dr. Nia Williams, the facility's chief physician, knelt beside Amora's unconscious form. The ultrasound machine wheeled into the cramped cell revealed the impossible, a healthy fetus at approximately 24 weeks gestation. "How is this possible?" Dr. Williams whispered, her hands trembling as she adjusted the ultrasound probe. "She's been in complete isolation for over a year." But the monitors don't lie. The heartbeat was real. The pregnancy was real. The explanation was nowhere to be found. Warden Marcus Thompson stood in his office at dawn, staring at the ultrasound images scattered across his desk. In his 25 years of corrections work, he had never faced anything like this. A death row inmate, pregnant without any recorded contact with another human being. How do you explain the impossible? Lock down the entire facility, he ordered his deputy. No one speaks to the media. We investigate this internally first. The questioning began immediately. Every guard interrogated. Every maintenance worker questioned. Every person who had stepped foot near Block F was put under a microscope. Security footage from the past 8 months was reviewed frame by frame, minute by agonizing minute. The results were more than baffling, they were terrifying. Amora had never left her cell. Not once. The cameras proved it. No unauthorized person had entered. The logs were perfect. Every male staff member was accounted for during the conception window. Even the food delivery system was handled entirely by female officers. The facility was supposed to be impenetrable. The security was military grade. The protocols were foolproof. So how did a woman locked in a concrete box for 18 months end up carrying a child? Amora herself remained silent during questioning, offering only a cryptic response when pressed about the father's identity. Sometimes miracles happen in the darkest places. But this wasn't a miracle anyone could understand. This was an impossibility that made everyone question everything they thought they knew about their own prison. The breakthrough came from the most unlikely source imaginable. Jamal Davis, the facility's head of maintenance, was a detail-oriented man who noticed patterns others missed. While reviewing repair logs that most people would find mind-numbingly boring, something caught his eye. 6 months earlier, a ventilation duct had been serviced directly above the solitary confinement wing. The worker assigned to that job was Darius Mitchell, inmate M2883, serving a 5-year sentence for embezzlement. Darius was everything a warden dreams of in a prisoner: quiet, educated, never caused trouble. He had been studying pre-med before his arrest and often assisted in the infirmary. When confronted about the ventilation work, his carefully maintained composure cracked like ice under pressure. "She sent me a note," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. Through a crack in the vent system. Said she didn't want to die without leaving something behind. What they discovered next defied every security protocol ever written. The investigation revealed an elaborate system of communication through the building's old ventilation network. Amora, using her chemistry knowledge, had figured out how to send messages through the air ducts, a method so ingenious that it had never occurred to security experts to monitor it. Darius, with access to medical supplies during his infirmary duties, had responded to her desperate plea. It wasn't about romance, Darius explained to investigators, tears streaming down his face. It was about hope. She was brilliant, dying alone, and she just wanted to create something good before the end. But here's what nobody understood yet. This wasn't just about two inmates breaking rules. This was about a woman who had already lost everything, finding a way to leave behind the only thing that mattered, life itself. Before she was prisoner C-4471, before she was a woman sentenced to die, Dr. Amora Johnson had been one of the most promising chemists of her generation. But sometimes the brightest minds create the darkest tragedies. Born in Detroit to parents who had sacrificed everything for her education, Amora had overcome poverty, racism, and countless obstacles to earn her PhD at 26. She was conducting groundbreaking research on pain management medications at Northwestern University. Her colleagues called her a genius. Her parents called her their miracle child. Her younger brother Jerome called her his hero. That hero worship would destroy them both. Jerome was a brilliant college student at Howard University who had become addicted to prescription painkillers after a basketball injury ended his dreams of going pro. When legitimate doctors cut him off, he turned to street drugs. Amora watched helplessly as her brilliant brother, the kid who used to help her with science fair projects, who had followed her footsteps into chemistry, deteriorated before her eyes.
If you're enjoying this story, kindly do us a favor and subscribe to our channel. It is free and won't cost anything, but it means the world to us. We're just a small channel trying to grow. Thank you, and back to the video.
Stealing from their grandmother. Lying about everything. Disappearing for days at a time. Their mother, Dorothea Johnson, spent sleepless nights waiting for the phone call that would tell her she'd lost her son forever. Please, Amora, Jerome had begged during what would be their last conversation. You're the smartest person I know. There has to be something you can do. Some way you can help me that won't kill me like this street poison will. In a moment of desperation and misguided love, Amora made the decision that would end her life as she knew it. She used her laboratory access to synthesize what she believed would be a safer alternative to street drugs. She would give Jerome a controlled supply, help him wean off gradually, save his life. She was going to be his hero again. But Amora's chemistry was flawed. The synthetic compounds she created were far more potent and dangerous than she had calculated. She had underestimated the interaction between the base compounds and common cutting agents used by street dealers. Jerome died from an overdose of her creation on a cold February morning in 2009, along with 16 others who had purchased the drug from dealers who had somehow obtained her supply through Jerome's connections. 17 people. Dead. Because she tried to save one. The guilt consumed her like acid. During her trial, Amora barely spoke in her own defense. Her court-appointed attorney begged her to show emotion, to explain her motivations, to help the jury understand that she wasn't a cold-blooded killer but a sister who had made a tragic mistake. When her mother testified as a character witness, breaking down on the stand as she described losing both her children, one to drugs, one to the justice system, Amora remained stone-faced. When the judge read the death sentence, she didn't flinch. She didn't appeal. She accepted death as penance for her tragic mistake. I killed my baby brother, she told the prison chaplain during her first week on death row. I killed 16 other people's babies too. Maybe some of them had sisters who loved them the way I loved Jerome. Maybe those sisters are asking God why their brothers had to die because of my pride. But now, locked in a concrete tomb for 18 months, she had found one last way to create life instead of death. In the sterile confines of her cell, Amora had spent months planning. Using her chemistry background, she calculated optimal timing, temperature requirements, and pH levels. She fashioned tools from commissary items, created makeshift laboratory equipment from soap dispensers and plastic utensils. The first note she had sent through the ventilation system was simple: "I am Dr. Amora Johnson. I am going to die soon. I want to create life before I go. Will you help me?" It had taken weeks for Darius to respond. When he finally did, his note was equally direct: "I understand wanting to leave something good behind. How?" Their correspondence continued for months through the intricate ventilation system. Neither had physical contact, they had never even seen each other's faces clearly. Darius would leave biological material in a specially prepared container within the ductwork, following Amora's precise scientific instructions for preservation and timing. "I didn't do this to escape my sentence," Amora told the prison psychiatrist during one of many evaluations after Sophia's birth. "I did this because I wanted to create life after causing so much death. I wanted to leave something good in this world. Something that wouldn't carry the burden of my mistakes." The pregnancy had proceeded in secret. Amora used her scientific knowledge to maintain her health, calculating nutritional needs from her limited commissary options. She exercised in the small space of her cell, performing modified yoga and breathing techniques she had researched years earlier during her graduate studies when stress had nearly overwhelmed her. She had morning sickness that she disguised as general illness. She experienced back pain that she attributed to sleeping on the thin prison mattress. She felt the baby's first movements during her daily recreation hour, alone in the concrete yard, and wept with joy that no one could see. For months, Amora documented everything in a secret journal written on scraps of paper and hidden in a hollowed-out section of her mattress. She wrote about her hopes for the child, her fears about bringing a baby into such a dark world, and her determination to somehow give this life a chance she had never been able to give Jerome. "Today I felt her kick for the first time," she wrote when she was about 5 months along. "I call her Sophia because it means wisdom, and I pray she will be wiser than I ever was. I pray she will make better choices. I pray she will understand that love sometimes means making impossible decisions." As her pregnancy progressed, Amora became increasingly creative about hiding her condition. She altered her prison uniforms using techniques learned from other inmates, created binding systems that would compress her growing belly during inspections, and learned to control her movements to avoid suspicion. Officer Washington later admitted that she had noticed Amora seemed different during those months, quieter, more introspective, sometimes caught humming softly during cell checks. But pregnancy was the last thing anyone would have suspected. She was getting ready to die, Washington said during the investigation. "We all just assumed she was making peace with that." On a humid September night in 2013, Amora went into labor completely alone in her cell. She had prepared as much as possible, using torn bedsheets sterilized with disinfectant soap, creating a makeshift delivery area in the corner of her cell. She had studied prison birth stories, medical texts smuggled through the library system, and had even practiced breathing techniques by watching herself in the small mirror above her sink. No doctors, no nurses, no pain medication. Just a woman sentenced to die, bringing life into the world in the most impossible circumstances imaginable. The labor lasted 14 hours. Amora bit down on a rolled-up towel to muffle her cries, terrified that making noise would bring guards who would discover her secret before Sophia was safely born. She had calculated that the baby would be premature but viable, and she prayed her timing was correct. When Sophia finally emerged at 3:47 a.m., Amora caught her own daughter with hands that had once created death but were now cradling life. The baby's first cry was weak but clear, and Amora quickly wrapped her in the cleanest cloth she had prepared. "Hello, my beautiful girl," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Mama's here. You're safe now." Officer Washington discovered them during the 4 a.m. security check. Amora was conscious but exhausted, holding a tiny infant wrapped in her prison shirt. The sight was so impossible that Washington actually rubbed her eyes, certain she was hallucinating. "Her name is Sophia," Amora whispered, tears streaming down her face. "It means wisdom. Maybe she'll be wiser than I was." The medical team rushed both mother and child to the prison infirmary. Baby Sophia was healthy despite the circumstances, 5 pounds, 2 ounces, with her mother's dark eyes and surprisingly strong lungs. Dr. Williams worked frantically to ensure both patients were stable while trying to understand how this impossible situation had occurred. In that moment, looking at her daughter for the first time under bright lights, Amora realized something profound. She had spent 3 years waiting to die. Now she had a reason to live. The birth of Sophia created an unprecedented legal situation. Federal law prohibited the execution of pregnant inmates, but the law was unclear about nursing mothers. Amora's case sparked a national debate about justice, redemption, and the rights of children born in prison. Legal aid organizations rushed to file appeals on Amora's behalf, arguing that executing a nursing mother would constitute cruel and unusual punishment. The NAACP Legal Defense Fund took up her case, arguing that the intersection of her race, gender, and motherhood created additional constitutional concerns. The State Attorney General's office maintained that Amora had manipulated the system and that her sentence should be carried out after the child was weaned. News of the case spread quickly through social media, with hashtags like #SophiaJohnson and #MiracleBehindTheBars trending nationwide. Protesters gathered outside the prison, some demanding justice for Amora's victims, others calling for mercy for a mother and child. Amora herself remained ambivalent about the legal maneuvering. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," she told her court-appointed attorney, a young black woman named Zoe Carter who reminded Amora painfully of herself at that age. "I'm asking for time for Sophia to know she was loved before she has to face the world alone." The prison administration created a special unit for Amora and Sophia, a slightly larger cell with basic childcare amenities. The warden had consulted with child welfare experts, legal advisors, and prison psychologists to create an environment that would be as nurturing as possible under the circumstances. Amora proved to be a devoted mother, reading to Sophia from textbooks donated by the prison library, singing lullabies her own mother had sung to her and Jerome, teaching her daughter about colors and shapes using crayon drawings on the back of commissary receipts. She spoke to Sophia in both English and the little Spanish she remembered from high school, determined to give her daughter every advantage possible. Other inmates, even those hardened by years of violence, were moved by the sight of Amora carrying Sophia during their brief outdoor recreation periods. The baby's laughter echoed through corridors that had known only despair for decades. Tough women who hadn't shown emotion in years found themselves smiling when Sophia babbled during meals or reached tiny hands through the bars during count time. "That kid doesn't know she's in prison," observed Officer Washington. "To her, the world is just her mom's arms and the sound of her voice." Tasha Williams, serving life for armed robbery, became an unofficial auntie to Sophia. Having lost custody of her own 3 children years earlier, she found purpose in helping Amora care for the baby. She taught Amora how to make toys from commissary items, how to create mobile decorations from plastic spoons and string, how to maximize nutrition from prison food for a nursing mother. "Amora's different from the rest of us," Tasha told the prison social worker. "She's not hard like we had to become. Maybe that's because she's got something to live for now." Dr. Williams conducted regular checkups on Sophia, marveling at her development. "She's hitting all her milestones," she reported to the administration. Cognitively, she's actually ahead of schedule. Amora's been teaching her constantly. The prison library staff, led by librarian Maya Robinson, worked to provide Amora with child development books, picture books for Sophia, and educational materials. They bent rules to allow Amora extended library time, understanding that education was the one gift she could give her daughter in their limited circumstances. "Every day, I see Amora teaching that baby something new," Maya observed. "She's trying to pack a lifetime of mothering into whatever time she has left." As Sophia approached her first birthday, the realities of prison life became increasingly apparent. The toddler needed space to run, other children to play with, educational opportunities that the prison couldn't provide. Sophia had begun walking early, at 10 months, and the small cell couldn't contain her curiosity and energy. Amora began keeping a detailed journal for Sophia, writing entries about their daily life, her hopes for her daughter's future, and explanations of the choices that had led them to this place. She knew that eventually, she would have to make the most difficult decision of her life. "I can't give her freedom," Amora wrote in one entry, "but I can give her to someone who can." She also began writing letters to Sophia for future birthdays, graduations, and milestones she would never witness. Each letter was carefully crafted to provide guidance, love, and wisdom for specific ages and challenges. Meanwhile, Darius Mitchell faced his own consequences. Prison officials had discovered his role in Sophia's conception, and he was facing additional charges that could extend his sentence significantly. The investigation had revealed the elaborate communication system he and Amora had developed, the careful planning involved in the conception, and his ongoing emotional investment in Sophia's welfare. During his disciplinary hearing, Darius spoke publicly for the first time about his motivations. The hearing room was packed with media, legal observers, and advocates from various organizations. "I never touched her," he told the panel, his voice steady despite the weight of additional years hanging over him. "We never even spoke directly until after Sophia was born. But I saw her note, and I understood what it meant to want to leave something good behind when you've made terrible mistakes." Darius had grown up in Chicago, the son of a single mother who worked 2 jobs to keep him in school. He had earned a full scholarship to college, was studying to become a doctor, had dreams of opening a clinic in his neighborhood. But the pressure to help his family financially had led him to embezzle funds from the non-profit organization where he worked during his junior year. "I threw away my future for $30,000, he said. "But helping Amora, that felt like the first good thing I'd done since I got here. I may not be Sophia's father in any real sense, but I'll always know I helped bring something beautiful into the world." Darius accepted the additional sentence without complaint. He had no family visits, no one waiting for him on the outside. His mother had died while he was incarcerated, and his siblings had distanced themselves from his shame. In helping Amora, he had found a purpose that made his own punishment bearable. The media attention surrounding the case brought unexpected support for both Amora and Darius. Letters poured in from around the country, some condemning their actions, others offering support and understanding. Religious organizations debated the theological implications of their story. Legal scholars wrote extensively about the case's constitutional questions. Dr. Imani Foster, a prominent bioethicist and African American studies professor at Emory University, wrote a widely circulated essay arguing that Amora's case highlighted the intersection of racism, sexism, and the dehumanization inherent in the death penalty system. "We are witnessing a profound moral question," Dr. Foster wrote. "Can a woman who has taken life still deserve the chance to nurture life? Does the color of her skin, the circumstances of her crime, the desperation of her situation matter in how we answer that question?" When Sophia was 15 months old, Amora made the decision she had been dreading. Through the prison's Family Services Department, she arranged for Sophia to be adopted by Dr. Nia Williams, the prison physician who had delivered the child. Dr. Williams and her husband, Kenneth, a high school principal, had been trying to conceive for years without success. They had been through multiple rounds of IVF, had considered adoption through traditional channels, but had never imagined their family would be formed through such extraordinary circumstances. When Amora approached her about the adoption, Dr. Williams was initially hesitant due to professional boundaries. But watching Amora's devotion to Sophia and understanding the child's need for a life outside prison walls convinced her. "I can't promise she'll never know where she came from," Dr. Williams told Amora during one of their meetings in the prison's family consultation room. "But I can promise she'll know she was loved. She'll know her mother was brilliant, that she made mistakes but tried to make them right." The adoption process was complicated by Amora's legal status and the unusual circumstances of Sophia's birth. Social workers had to evaluate whether a death row inmate could legally consent to adoption, whether the prison environment had affected Sophia's development, and whether the adoptive family could handle the unique challenges and media attention that would likely follow Sophia throughout her life. Kenneth Williams proved to be as committed to the adoption as his wife. "This little girl needs a family," he told the social worker during their evaluation. "She didn't choose her circumstances, and she deserves every chance at a normal, loving childhood. Nia and I can give her that." The transfer was arranged quietly, with minimal media attention. Amora spent Sophia's last night in the prison holding her daughter, singing the lullabies that had become their bedtime routine, telling her stories about the stars they couldn't see through the prison walls but that would always be watching over her. She dressed Sophia in a yellow dress that she had somehow fashioned from a pillowcase, using techniques learned from other inmates who had children on the outside. She braided Sophia's hair with ribbons made from unraveled sock threads, creating a style that would photograph beautifully for the family album she would never see. "Remember," Amora whispered to her daughter as dawn approached, "you are not your circumstances. You are possibility itself. You are love made manifest. You are the best thing I ever did with my life." The handover took place in the prison's administrative building, away from the general population and media attention. Dr. Williams arrived with her husband, a car seat, and a diaper bag filled with everything a toddler might need for her journey to a new life. Sophia, now walking confidently and chattering in a mixture of words and sounds, initially clung to Amora when she saw the strangers. But Dr. Williams had been visiting regularly for weeks, and Sophia gradually warmed to her gentle voice and patient demeanor. "Mama will always love you," Amora said, her voice steady despite the tears streaming down her face. "These good people are going to take care of you now. They're going to give you everything I can't." As the Williams family drove away with Sophia, Amora was escorted back to death row. She had negotiated one final request, that her execution be rescheduled to allow her to finish the letters and journals she was leaving for Sophia. Amora's execution was rescheduled for the following year. She spent her remaining months writing extensively for Sophia, letters for birthdays, graduations, wedding day, the birth of her own children. She created a detailed autobiography, explaining her childhood, her education, her relationship with Jerome, and the tragic decisions that had led to her imprisonment. She also wrote letters of apology to the families of her victims, taking full responsibility for the pain she had caused and explaining that Sophia's birth hadn't lessened her understanding of the gravity of her crimes. "I know that my motherhood doesn't erase the fact that I destroyed other families," she wrote to the mother of one victim. "I know that Sophia's beauty doesn't diminish the ugliness of what I did. I can only hope that somewhere in your heart, you can find peace knowing that even in the darkest places, life finds a way to continue." 3 weeks before her scheduled execution, Amora was found dead in her cell during the morning count. The coroner ruled it natural causes, a heart attack brought on by the stress of impending separation from her life's greatest accomplishment. Some suspected suicide, but no evidence supported that theory, and those who knew Amora believed she wouldn't have chosen to leave Sophia without saying goodbye through her letters. Her final journal entry, found on her small desk next to a photo of Sophia that Dr. Williams had provided, read, "I gave life to someone who will never know my mistakes, only my love. She will never have to carry the weight of what I did. She is pure possibility, untainted by my failures. That is enough. That is everything." The funeral was small, attended by Dr. Williams and her family, a few prison staff members who had grown to respect Amora's transformation, and Tasha Williams, who had been released shortly before Amora's death and insisted on paying her respects. "She wasn't perfect," Tasha said at the graveside service. "None of us are. But she loved that little girl with everything she had, and she made sure Sophia would have a chance at a better life. That's got to count for something." Today, Sophia Williams is a vibrant 8-year-old who loves science experiments, speaks 3 languages, and has an uncanny ability to find joy in the smallest things. She attends a prestigious private school in Atlanta, where her adoptive father serves as principal, and excels in mathematics and science, showing early signs of inheriting her birth mother's intellectual gifts. Dr. Williams has kept Amora's journals and letters, waiting for the day when Sophia is old enough to understand her unique origin story. They have been honest with Sophia about her adoption, explaining in age-appropriate terms that her birth mother loved her very much but couldn't take care of her. "She has her mother's brilliant mind," Dr. Williams often observes, "but none of her burden." Amora's greatest achievement was ensuring that Sophia would have every opportunity she never had. Sophia knows she was adopted, knows her birth mother was very smart and loved her very much, but is shielded from the darker details of her origin story. The Williams family has decided to share Amora's letters and journals when Sophia turns 18, allowing her to make her own decisions about how much she wants to know about her past. Darius Mitchell was released in 2018 after serving his extended sentence. He now works as a counselor for at-risk youth in Detroit, sharing his story as a reminder that even in our darkest moments, we can choose to create something good. He has never met Sophia, but he follows her academic achievements through updates from Dr. Williams, who sends him an annual letter about Sophia's progress. "I may have made mistakes that cost me my freedom," Darius tells the young people he counsels, "but I also had the privilege of helping bring something beautiful into this world. That reminder keeps me going when everything else feels hopeless." The case of Amora Johnson and Sophia Williams remains one of the most unusual in correctional history, a story of how love, ingenuity, and hope can flourish even in the most unlikely circumstances. It challenges our understanding of justice, redemption, and the lengths to which a mother will go to ensure her child has a chance at a better life. Legal scholars continue to debate the implications of Amora's case for death penalty jurisprudence, maternal rights, and prison reform. Her story has been featured in documentaries, academic papers, and advocacy campaigns for criminal justice reform. In the end, Amora's greatest scientific achievement wasn't her research or her tragic synthesis. It was Sophia, a living testament to the possibility of creating light in even the darkest places. The woman who had accidentally created death had intentionally created life. And that life would matter more than anything she had ever done before. If this incredible true story moved you, please like and subscribe for more amazing tales that will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about the human spirit. Hit that notification bell so you never miss our latest uploads.